this is Tyler.
And this is Carmine, a new rock donkey. Carmine, why don't you go ahead and tell us about yourself and your Jeep?
Awesome. Hi, I'm Carmine, and this is my 1994 Jeep Cherokee, I guess. It started life as a Cherokee, but I ended up chopping the back of it, putting a Comanche backpack into it, so I like to call it a Cherokee. The basics. Running 37-inch BFGs right now. It's a straight six, but it has been board stroke, so it's 4.7 liter. 5-speed manual transmission from Rockley standard gear, a Rubicon transfer case, 456 gears in the axles, a Detroit locker out back, and an ARB up front. Basically built for crawling. That's the stuff I like to do. Not really into the high-speed stuff. And that's about it. You can probably see all kinds of body damage on here. Every single dent and scratch has its own story, I'm sure. So, looking forward to rolling with R&R.
Turning Jeeps into raisins is one of the best things we do. Ask Tana on her flops. And
So, Carmen, how long have you been wheeling?
Over 10 years. I've had this Jeep actually for about 9 years. I had another Jeep that I rolled and totaled. Found this Jeep in a field for $500 and swapped a lot of parts into this one. And at that time, I kind of crossed the threshold from being a novice beginner to more of the intermediate level stuff. That was a huge learning experience. Taught myself how to weld at that same time. That was about 10 years ago, and in that time, as I get a little bit better at wheeling, I will make another modification and figure something out this week. So I'd say it's right exactly where it needs to be.
and you two are like Zach. You are active duty in 29 Palms right now.
Yes, stationed on 29 Palms. Been here for about a year. Should have about 2 more years left. A lot of people don't want to be stationed in 29 Palms, but I love it. I love the desert. I love the trails. I enjoy the desert lifestyle. Good people around here. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we are excited to wheel with you, and we will be hitting the trails soon and getting some new videos out there.
I am excited to be part of the crew.
Stay tuned. See you on the trails.
Sounds loud and angry.
Doesn't it happen in the back seat?
No, that back seat's really small. So like I said earlier, this is still a straight six. Externally, it's going to look just like any other 4-liter straight six. However, this is a stroker motor. This one in particular is from Bishop Buell Racing Engines. I kind of worked back and forth with him on what kind of build I wanted to do. Ended up with an awesome product. Very happy with this. A lot more power than the stock engine. But the power band is right where I want it for the type of off-roading that I do. A couple little changes I made here and there. You can probably see the intake, a little bit larger surface area on the air filter. It's a dry element filter, so I don't have to worry about oiling it, which is nice. It's just a simple wash and reuse, so I'm not replacing filters. A Gibson exhaust. For the most part, there's a couple pieces here and there that was a spare exhaust tube, but a Gibson exhaust. I took off the AC compressor, AC condenser to clear up a little bit more airflow for the radiator, running a 3-core radiator, mechanical fan, which is pretty much an OEM piece with a...
You can never go wrong with that.
It is reliable. It has a
I really
great...
like your strut setup you got here.
Okay, so this, eventually I would like to tie this into the cage, but on a Cherokee, because it's a unibody, you know, the more bracing, the better, right? Because the body and frame are essentially one piece. So this runs right over top of the shock and spring tower. You can kind of see down in here is probably the best bet, but it adds a lot of rigidity to the front end, which a night and day difference from the way it was before. I can feel it driving around.
Yeah, you don't get that flex from steering when you're on obstacles, stuff like that.
And speaking of flex, I had to kind of weld some plates onto the frame on this side because the steering box is over here and there's a lot of stress that ends up at this joint. So if you zoom in and I clear the, no, you don't have to do that. I was about to point out all my really bad welds because, like I said, I taught myself to weld on this Jeep, and a lot of the welds are not pretty, but if the welds are still attached today, I'm gonna call them good and strong. But to the point that Shiloh was making, yes, you definitely have to stiffen things up. You can feel the flex until you start to plate things and gusset things and brace things.
Right, like I take it you did the obvious frame stiffeners on every Cherokee.
Yes.
Rock sliders, tighten to the body.
The rock sliders run to the frame and the body, and then it ties into the cage here, ties into the leaf spring mount back here, and then the center portion of the frame has rough stuff stiffeners on it. They get welded to the frame. The slider is then welded to that, so it adds a lot of rigidity front to back. So essentially it goes from the forwardmost point of the rear suspension all the way up to the rearmost point of the front suspension, which makes for a very sturdy chassis. Yeah. Also, I don't run doors. I haven't had doors on this Jeep.
Yeah, it kind of looks like it would be kind of hard to run a door.
Right? This certainly changes the angle of this pillar. I haven't had doors in this Jeep in years. I still have the doors. I have a hard time getting rid of things, so the doors are sitting in my yard right now. But to me, doorless is the only way, especially if you're doing rock crawling. You get a lot more visibility. You're moving slow enough that you're not relying on the door for any type of safety. If you were to flop over, you should, be wearing a seatbelt. The cage that's on this Jeep does a lot too, to reinforce the body. But without doors, right, you don't have kind of a big panel here to stop you if you were to flip over. I don't like to say that doors provide structure to a unibody Jeep like the ZK, the XJ, the NJ, because really it is just a hinge on the striker. But if you roll over, the door is an added level of protection. But I don't like to run doors. I really like the open air feel. It's part of the experience if you were to ask me.
Well, it allows you to see obstacles as you come to.
Yeah, absolutely. There have also been situations where my spotter will be saying something or talking, and if I had the door on with the window up and the AC going, you would never hear that. So,
Right, like Tanner. How does Zach spot you?
Hey, no.
If we move
Badly.
back here, I guess.
He spotted me badly.
I still run leaf springs in the rear. A lot of people have asked me why do I not do a coil conversion. I like the way that a Cherokee rides on leaf springs.
It works. Why change it?
Absolutely.
If it ain't
It's
broke,
simple,
don't fix it.
It's reliable. It is predictable. This is the third set of leaf springs I've had on this Jeep, and I went with Alcan for these springs. You could basically get custom built leaf springs. Call the guy, tell him what it is you want, what you do. He builds a set specifically for your needs. It's been about 6 months I've had these springs on here, so I think they're pretty well broken in, and they are phenomenal. It does exactly what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably the best angle of the chop that I did as well, so you can kind of see that back panel is all Comanche. I went to a junkyard, found a junked Comanche, drew a line with a marker, and the workers there at the junkyard walked out, cut it open for me, and I put it in my truck bed and brought it back to my garage and put it into place.
These panels right here are the back portion
Yes.
of the Comanche cab.
And I don't want to admit how much money I spent on these particular panels. I have had to eBay, auction, backwoods deal to try to find these panels, but I like the way it looks. It adds something to this space.
It's that added flair. It makes it unique.
It
One
serves
thing
no
that we
purpose
strive to be
whatsoever.
in
Yeah.
R&RD. I mean, Corey's got a massive Cherokee. Tana has a really rad JK Limited.
This disgusting thing. You
But
can say
it
everyone's
does.
thinking it.
It does what we love to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I ran around on 35s for a really long time, for probably 5 or 6 years. I've only put 37s on this Jeep in the past. Actually, King of the Hammers this past February was my first run on 37s. I think the Jeep is perfect. I don't ever want to go bigger. I think the balance of tire size to suspension travel to power is right where it needs to be. Happy with these tires, but I got an old set of crawlers, so they are chunky and split a lot.
What gears do you have?
456 gears in the axles, which driving on the highway, especially with the 5-speed, if I get up to about 60, I'll use overdrive. If it's anything below that, I don't really mess with overdrive. But on the trail, the transmission transfer case, and then I have an underdrive as well, is geared perfectly for tires this size. If I were to put it in the lowest low range, the crawl ratio is about 191. Maybe a little bit overkill, but there are definitely situations, maybe you're coming down something, and you need the most amount of control, you don't want to ride the brakes, that's when I use that gear ratio.
I 100% with you agree there.
Yeah, I will tell anybody, one of the first upgrades you want to do is gears. If you're going to mess with gears, obviously you want to put in some type of a locker, but that makes a world of difference when it comes to off-roading, right? You're going to put bigger tires on. You want the tires to grab. You want the engine to be able to power the tires and move deep around. Gearing and lockers, I would say, for sure.
Axles, gears really helps with stress on the drivetrain.
Yes.
When it is done properly, you're not wrapping out the motor, it's not redlining, you're not overheating anything. All of it is well. The transmission, it's not overworking. Everything just rolls, everything just flows.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I mean, that was a learning curve, right? I had to figure that out. I ran around on stock gears for a while.
All of us have.
I
You know, Tana had 373s in hers for the longest time.
A long
I
time.
had 410s for the longest time. Shoot, I don't remember what Corey had, but yeah, I mean, that's just all part of the evolution of turning it into what you want and what you want to be able to do. But you definitely have a unique rig, and it's going to be a blast with you out there.
I really am looking forward to hitting some trails. That's like my relaxed time, my weekend time, if you will, right? I don't really follow sports. I don't know, go out.
Motorsports.
What's that?
Motorsports.
Okay, motorsports. I know what that is. No, I'm looking forward to being with you guys. I really am. I'm excited to be part of the crew. I know you guys know what you're doing on the trail, which is awesome as well. But I love being out on the trail and like exploring, seeing what the rig can do. You get stuck, you have to figure your way out. But everybody kind of knows how to pick their way through it. If you don't, you have a good spotter that can spot you through. So I'm stoked.
And that's one of the things that we really like to share is the camaraderie of off-roading. You know, the brethren that we have, just everybody communicates, everyone has fun, and everyone makes sure that you're going to have fun. I don't know how many times someone's called me broke out in the middle of nowhere, and I'll drop everything, go help them out. You know, I mean, it's fun.
I think that's kind of unique to the off-road community, probably because so much of it is like you end up building a lot of it or working on a lot of it in your garage. I would say more so than a lot of other motorsports. So you do most of the work yourself, right? You end up fixing a lot of stuff yourself. So when something breaks, it's like the other people who are also fixing the things themselves who you end up reaching out to for some help or some guidance or some funny jokes about how you messed something up or very, very poorly designed something or broke something. So
Like the running joke, Corey always breaks on the trail.
Corey has
Is it
broken
Corey?
tape every single time.
Zach
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure it was Zach. Zach.
Corey is pretty bulletproof now.
I'm gonna try not to be the guy that breaks every single time I go on the trail. So there's my commitment. Go ahead and sign it into the contract.
That's the next thing is we're gonna have to figure out what trails we're gonna hit. We really like the scenic trails. When we did Red Canyon, that was really awesome. The scenery was amazing, and coming across those mine shafts was really awesome. And then running across the old railroad tracks, totally rad. I mean, second to none. It was awesome,
But
we do still like case
rocks.
in point,
We want rocks.
Cougar Buttes, hitting the hardest stuff we can. And so we just try and hit all the best of both worlds. And
The Hammers trails have been a bucket list item of mine forever. For as long as I've been in California, so about 10 years now. The Hammers trails have been a bucket list item of mine. And finally, this last weekend, I was able to do Sledgehammer. And during King of the Hammers, as I did jackhammer. So I have both those trails under my belt.
Nice.
Super stoked that that finally happened, but that's the kind of off-roading I'm looking for.
Right?
That's really what I like to do. And like, maybe not the perfect vehicle for it, but like good enough. You know, in my book, this is like what it's built for. I love the scenery. I enjoy finding like mines. That sounds wild. That stuff sounds cool.
Now, like in the one we found, that active mine, that was a trip. To actually see people signing off like a few weeks before we were there was like, man, we need to go.
And obviously, you're not gonna find that stuff without like a Jeep, right? You're not
Right.
gonna drive your car out.
Absolutely.
So that is cool. It's nice to like chance upon something like that, but I'm really here for the trails.
For the rocks. We're here for the rocks.
We do need to get Tana's front locker in before we
could
go
just
and
weld
hit. No, that's the front. It's the front axle that we need to get. She has a locker. We just need to get the.
Plumbing, basically. The wiring done.
And we need to get the compressor in and get it hooked up. So then, guaranteed, we will definitely be hitting
It's
hammer
an air
trails.
locker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an air
If
locker.
you're a passenger, a bike pump.
I like. All right, here's your opportunity. If you want to be Tana's co-pilot with a bike pump, just hit her up at Instagram at Dirt Road Diva or Facebook.